1, 2, 1, 2. Hello, everybody. Here we go. We're about to admit, about to start, about to get this program happening. Here we go. Admit all. Hello, everybody. Nice. Look at all these beautiful people coming online. I love it. I love it. I'm going to continue to admit people from the waiting room as we come on in. I like your background, Mike, but it looks like you might be overstating it. Look at that beautiful. That's got to be a Lake Hayes or something like that. I like it. Matt Williams, nice to see your background, but I'm going to want to see your beautiful face at some point. All right, everybody, welcome. Come on in. We're just getting started on this little presentation. I have 2 rules, which I'm going to repeat a couple of times. One of them is mute yourself. So you all mute and unmute yourself. So you come in muted. Rob, you're going to need to mute yourself. Thank you, mate. And it's all new technology for some people, isn't it? It's almost like our kids have got awesome at this, but the rest of us are kind of learning. Nice to have you. I'm sure you've all been doing a million things. Hey, Rob, good to have you, mate. Nice, nice, nice. Fantastic. So here's what I would love everybody to do. I'm going to put it in gallery view. So if you go up to the top right, you'll see that you can do gallery or speaker view. So why doesn't everybody practice gallery view and speaker view? So just push gallery view for me. And so now it should be almost like a Brady Bunch. And as you can see, some people like me have our videos on. Rob has his video on. Thank you, Robert. And what I'm going to ask everybody to do, and this is dangerous, put your video on. Let me see the beautiful faces that you have. So come on, there you go. Oh, well, you don't even look like a Mick. Hello, nice to have you. Some of you are sneaking with other people's names. I like it, I like it. Hello, hello. Now what I'd like everybody to do is right click on your face and rename yourself. So Robert's got a name, I can see his name, all in lowercase as if he didn't go to a good school. Rex has got his done perfectly, which I love. Thank you, Mike. Good to have you. Good to have you. Very good. Very good. Marty, nice to have you. That's an interesting background, Marty. What is that? That looks like an airstrip or something. There you go. Fantastic. Good, good, good. Now I get that if you were in a live meeting with me, like let's say a training room, and I said, if you're going to leave the room, what would you do if you left the room? You'd turn your camera off, wouldn't you? Or it's the equivalent of that. So if you had to leave the room or for some reason you felt like you weren't with me, just turn your camera off. So that's very good. Okay, now I am an interactive speaker. My name's Matt Church, hello. And we're going to talk about leadership, particularly leadership now. And this is an opportunity to just connect. But because I'm an interactive speaker, I found after doing days and days and days of presentations on Zoom that things just got really exhausting. So what I'd like everybody to do now is just practice for me laughing. So imagine I said something funny. I would like you all to laugh. Ha, 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 go. Yeah, not going to work. That's just not going to work. Pink Elvis, I love it. I love it. You can even adopt your names. If you've just joined me, as there are 9 just coming in right now, feel free to send messages to your friend because I've given you full participation access. Everybody who comes in, Zaki, we're coming in with our microphones off. And then what we're going to do is we're turning our cameras on. Same with you, Shane, and others as you come on in. So you're doing good. So what I would like to introduce is that if you unmute, it's because you're asking me a question. Now, we've apparently only got half an hour, but I might go a little bit longer. I'm going to suggest, and Roggy's iPhone, whoever you are, you might just want to mute yourself, or I'll mute you. There you go. I've done it to you. I've done it to you, Josh. I'm going to don't make me come around and mute you. I will. I'll mute you, Dominika. There you go. Fantastic. And Gia, you're all doing good. Zaki, welcome. So what I'd love everybody to do is this. I'd like you to all, I've got a dancing daughter. So I want you to do jazz hands and spirit fingers. So if I say something funny or you think you need to go, oh, that was very good, I'd like you to do jazz hands and spirit fingers. Everyone practice. You need to lean back when you do that because if you do it this way, I can't see them. So lean back. And by the way, when you're presenting, you lean back for gesture. And you come forward for intimacy. And for those of you who are going to be educating clients and communicating across this medium for a lot longer than we all thought we would, let's get really good at this. My YouTube channel has a video with 5 tips for better at this, things like get it at head level. and pro tips for getting better at this. And pro tips would include the things I'm doing, like teaching the audience how to behave. So let's say, for example, I said something and I was asking a question like, who thinks my backdrop is cool? What I want is a thumbs up. Can I have a thumbs up? So everyone give me a thumbs up. That lets me know you're paying attention and you're with me. Let's say I did an inappropriate joke using dad humor and the puns were just too much. Give me a thumbs down. And you'd go, no, get that out of here. Unless, of course, you're into it and you could give me a double thumbs up because you've gone with me on that journey. So I know we're talking about leadership, and many of you are leading teams and clients in this environment, and you're doing it in this medium. So get really good at this. Okay, so you're all on gallery view because I asked you to. Now what I want you to do is I'm going to be a camera hog and put it on speaker view. Just look at me and only me. Look at me and only me. So you click the box up the top that says speaker view, and all you should see now is my beautiful bald head and my face talking to you. Is that correct? Give me a thumbs up. All right, good. And the reason that's going to work is that at different times, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be flicking to, say, my iPad, depending on how we go session-wise, and I'll be presenting to you this way. And that's not going to look so good if it's in a little gallery view, but it's going to look just great if you've got it on speaker view. Give me a thumbs up if you've got that on speaker view. Fantastic. Fantastic. And this is an example of an opening context. If you were talking to members of your team and wanting them to be more, you wanted a more leaderful business, then what you might be doing is having a conversation with them about the difference between a technician, a manager, and a leader. And for many of you, I realize you're all three of those things in your practice. And this is not what I want to talk about anyway, but I'm just demonstrating the technology challenge that we might have. One of our pro tips for those who want to get really, really good at doing the online communication, not the purpose of this talk, is you may actually want to start using different camera angles. And it can be as simple as a phone and a laptop set at eye level and just learning to switch between the two of them, which is going to work really well. And it's pretty straightforward. So that's sort of how I'm going to operate. So I just said something funny. You're agreeing with me. Your thumbs up, thumbs down. And you are in speaker view, but I'm watching all of you in gallery view. So I'm looking at all of you all the time, Matt Williams. I'm looking at all of you all the time, Carl Nesbitt. And subsequently, what you all have to do is you can't have MTV faces. So this is what a lot of people look like on Zoom. Of course, you don't think I'm looking at you. So look at me. For example, Pink Elvis, New Zealand's Pink Elvis, is giving me good face. So you do good face like an entertainer. Mr. Higgs, you've got good face as well, but it's a little bit ominous with your dark background. Not that I care too much about that. All right, let me admit in just a few more who've missed a little bit of that briefing, just because we're going through different. Here we go. I'm admitting John. And they're coming on board, but they've missed some of my cues. So for those that are just joining me, go on speaker view, not gallery view. I've just done a briefing. You'll all catch up. Everyone thumbs up? Fantastic. So the first thing that I think is really, really important, I'm only going to talk about two things today. I'm going to talk about sequence and I'm going to talk about context. And these are the two ideas that I'd like you to be able to carry out of this little masterclass and out of this little presentation, the idea of sequence and masterclass. Now, beautiful Sarah from my team, I don't know if you can administer the waiting room. You may be able to. I'll keep it on and do it another time, but I'll get you to do that as required. Hello, Sharyn, welcome. I'm just going to ask you to mute yourself as you've come on board, which is great. And I think it's because you're on two devices, which is completely okay, but do that. Fantastic. Good to have you. Gia, Crystal, the same with you as well, if you wouldn't mind. Just mute your microphone and we'll come from there. All right, Sarah's saying, I can. Just stand by, Sarah. Let me do that in just a minute. Okay, so the two things that I'm going to talk about are the importance of sequence and the importance of context. Now, if you're talking to people as a leader right now, whether that's an advice leader, whether that's as an actual leader, or even just an energetic leader in your network, in your family, I think it's important to notice over the last 6 weeks that not everybody is appearing in the same way. And this is a general leadership quality anyway, which is to be able to have enough awareness of yourself and others and enough behavioral flexibility in yourself to meet people where they're at. One of the most useful things that I think you'll be able to use in this current environment is basically a traffic light process. So to think a little bit around how someone is feeling with a red an amber or a green response. So let's imagine I was to talk about 3 weeks ago. So if everyone could cast their mind back 3 weeks, in the chat group, why don't you just quickly type in, were you feeling red? Like, shit, I'm kind of alarmed and I don't know what to do. Were you feeling amber, which is, I don't know, depends on what time of day you get me and in one context, or you're feeling quite green, and a green light is like, yeah, I'm kind of amped about this disruption. I'm really excited about this virtual stuff. I actually really love being at home. My teenage son loves the deep concentration he can do at home, and it's finding that the school structures that he's now had to return back to, I'm Sydney based, is not helping him at all, that he's actually managing noise. Now, as a kid, he had a thing called auditory processing disorder, which they misdiagnosed as ADHD. It's not. Basically, when he's listening to a lot of people, it sounds like you're in a pool underwater. And so he can't separate the teacher's noises. So for him, learning's much better. We're learning from home. So that's a green thing, right? He's someone who's quite optimistic about the changes and doesn't want to actually head back to school. So I'd like you to think about a couple of weeks ago what you were. We got some people green, lots of green people, very optimistic. I love that. Some oranges. Okay, great. If you're talking to a client or a team member and they identify as red for some reason, and either it's just you, and you just sort of go, how you going? How you going at the moment? And someone goes, oh man, I really don't know. I'm kind of in despair. You get all the signals, right? The general response from a leader is to not have an agenda, because the minute you go, well, sorry to hear about that. Now, have you done that thing I asked you to do? That's kind of not good leadership. Right? So sequence is about meeting people where they're at and being able to help them prioritize. And in the COVID-19 pandemic space, I think the traffic light will work. So if someone is red, it's all about their state. So you're saying, hey, are you getting some sleep? How's your family? How's your loved ones? Are you getting to eat? Where can I help you? So do you get that a leader responds in a triaged way, or they sequence their responses based on what is being presented to them? If someone's in an orange state, it's all about structure. So someone's in an orange state, they have good days and bad days, right? So you want to say, have you got a morning routine established yet? Are you taking the family for a walk? What are some of the rituals you're deploying? And so for some people, I've got a 17-year-old and a 19-year-old who essentially in a normal world are trying to get away from mum and dad. So I've now got the greedy benefit of my beautiful teenage children are now stuck at home with me for longer. And I am loving that. So, so for me, one of the rituals we've got is we eat dinner together, which is something that was fracturing over the last year or two, just based on the natural progression of their age. So structures really matter for someone who's amber. And one of the things we implemented very early in our family is who's going to get on the treadmill, when are you going for a walk, who are you going for a walk with? And that was very much to do with the amber nature of how some of us are. Now, someone who's green, you're really going, what's your opportunity right now? What are you doing to sort of thrive through this? How is this, which is temporary but ongoing, how is this going to be a positive disruption? And I'm reminded for people who are green that Viktor Frankl, in his book Man's Search for Meaning, he talked very much about agency and this idea that it's a disruption if I'm not doing it to myself. It's progress if I'm doing it to myself. And he talked about being in Auschwitz as a psychiatrist and who had written a book, and the Nazis took his life's work and burnt it and then put him in these concentration camps. And he turned it into a social experiment. And he noticed that there were people who just seemed to cope better than others with that great tragedy that was happening around them. And he said the number one behavior is they'd break off of their bread that they had, they'd break off half of it, and they'd sneak it to someone who was really in need. And what he said was, I don't think it was an altruistic gesture. In other words, they weren't doing it because they were good people. He said they were doing it because it gave them a sense of control in an environment for which they felt they had none. And I think that's where a lot of us are at the moment. So first thing that leaders do is they understand the power of sequence. And in this pandemic environment, depending on your clients and your team members, when you lead now, you lead with a little bit of a triage and changing your response, right? So if they're red, it's all about their state. If they're orange, it's all about the structures that they've got. And if it's the green, it's all about their strategies, where they want to go. And as I'm talking to clients or team members, I've got to continually run that filter: red, orange, green, red, orange, green, red, orange, green. Where are they at? And in a meeting, someone's lights can change, can't they? All right, can I get a thumbs up that made sense? Can I get a double thumbs up if you think that's possibly useful? That might be a practical thing you could use. All right, 30% of you. I'm looking at all of you, so don't think you're not going to give me thumbs up. Now, anybody who's on without a camera, this is your opportunity. Camera's on, microphone's off, and you are in speaker view, not gallery view. The best way I'm going to present is if you go up to the button at the top and you click on speaker view. That's going to work beautifully for you. Okay. We're still in sequence, because I told you there's only two things I'm going to talk about: sequence and context. In a non-pandemic world, or a non-dramatic world, because we're in a somewhat dramatic world, so we're using the traffic light system, essentially whenever you're leading change or transformation, what you want to be able to do is you want to be able to help people using a that was then, this is now methodology. So what I'd love everybody to do is I'd love everybody to draw sort of 3 columns on a piece of paper. So it's pretty straightforward, pretty easy. Let's do one here. Ding, 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 and ding. All right, let me get to my presentation. So if you take this, anytime you're talking to someone, and I think this is better organic than it is digital, so you have to do it digitally. So learning how to use your iPad on a Zoom, or how to, if you're sitting with someone one-on-one, like a family member, get a piece of paper out. It's much better to co-create it, to draw it together. I want you to sort of think that that was then, and this is now. And if you're trying to lead people through change, getting them to list things that were, that and how they've changed, is a really important conversation. And even though this might be apparent, making it explicit and putting it onto an object separate of the two of you changes it from me having to influence you versus you just seeing this as true and useful. Can I get a thumbs up? Does that make sense? Okay, great. So you can almost start with just these 2 columns, but leave space on your notepad to do the 3rd column, right? Just leave space for that to pop up. Because what you want to get to is you ultimately want to get to this idea of, and what could we do next? Then, now, and next then becomes a dynamic for moving people. And what they generally do is, anybody who is overly attached to the past, overly attached to the way things were, they just get to see it in a kind of impersonal kind of case study, if you like. This little diagram sitting in front of them just helps them understand sequence. It also helps someone who's stuck in their technical role to maybe see the big picture a little bit. So the conversation goes, well, let's talk about some things that have changed. What was then? And someone might say, well, we used to do face-to-face meetings. And you go, okay, great. Now what are we doing? And they're saying, we're doing Zoom. All right, fabulous. What do you think we want to do moving forward? And you get them to co-create this with you, generally with an idea of what you want. And that's like, well, maybe we could do some of our meetings that way. You go, I think that's a great idea. And also, maybe not everybody needs to be at every meeting. And so who thinks that meetings sometimes kill the productivity of teams? Give me a little thumb up if you think that might happen. Yeah, and I think a lot of us get stuck in them all the time because someone's default pattern is to call a meeting, and just how long do they make the meetings, do you reckon? Just by default, what do people do? They're half-hour and they're 1-hour meetings. There's a guy called Al Pitambali, that's a big name, and Al Pitambali wrote a book, a really short book, a little manifesto that says, before our next meeting, read this. And he's basically saying there are 2 types of meetings in the world. There are decision-making meetings and brainstorming meetings. A decision-making meeting, make everybody stand up and make them 12 minutes at midday, all right? Here's our decisions. The paper gets sent in advance. If you don't have anything to do with the decision, don't be at the meeting. And if you haven't read the materials, don't turn up, right? So decision-making meetings are very different to brainstorming meetings. A brainstorming meeting has muffins and bean bags and colored posters and texters and funny little hats and cappuccinos and things that open up our ability to listen. But what happens is a lot of people are turning up to meetings kind of in this 50-50 where they're not sure what they're doing. And I think it's a leader's job to actually lean into meeting structure. Now that's just a little weird offside because I was here on my little iPad talking about meetings as the possible thing that you might want to talk about. But whatever you put under this doesn't really matter. As a leader, you want to go, that was then, this is now, and what's going to be next. Okay, it's an opportunity for me to sort of talk about at a high level what I think leaders do extraordinarily well. Throughout history, leaders have only ever needed to do three things, and we need it now more than ever, right? So this is the three roles of a leader. And you can go do an MBA, you can study leadership courses, and I've written a ton of books on it, and you should definitely download those. All my books are free, by the way. If you went to mattchurch.com/books, you can download all my books. And they're just PDFs that you can then use. And what I reckon you might want to do is take a chapter, because you can do that on a PDF, and just go, just that chapter I'm going to share with the client. You know what I mean? And there's chapters on meetings and all sorts of things. You'll enjoy it. The book that there are two that are, well, there's three. My latest book is called Rise Up. It's cool, and it's about you being a better leader. My book from last year is called Next, which is about exactly what we're talking about, how to lead through change and disruption. And the book that came before that is called Amplifiers, which is all about building leaderful companies. So, there's a whole bunch of other books, but those three are the three that I'm kind of drawing on today. So do you get that under the idea of sequence? We've got traffic lights and columns, and they're two leadership frameworks that I think you could use to help people, because the three roles of a leader are as such, right? Number one, wherever we are afraid, replace fear with confidence. That's what a leader does. It's not what a manager does, and it's not what a technician does. All right. And I think that each of you probably has all three roles going, right? Who's got to technically use some subject matter expertise? Just give me a hands up. Who's actually got to apply subject matter expertise, right? So that's technical, right? Who's got to manage other people to get things done? And it might be, yeah, right. Okay, fantastic. And who does actually lead? Okay, so here's the thing. That was a trick question. I wanted every hand up on leadership, because everybody leads all the time. It's not a job description, it's a disposition. All right, and if you've ever been on a holiday with a 3-year-old, let me ask you, who's leading the holiday? Who determines whether we go to dinner, whether we stay in the restaurant, right? It's the person who's creating the energy. I think CEO stands for Chief Energy Officer, not Chief Executive Officer. So I believe leadership is a disposition, not a position. Does that make sense? I think it's an attitude you carry. Just give me a thumbs up. All right, nothing new there, because leadership's as old as time. Leadership and parenting, anthropologically the same thing. And you don't have to have kids to get this, right? This is not about kids. But leadership and parenting, anthropologically, the same thing. Right? So that's kind of how we want to think about our disposition piece. You don't stop parenting once you're a parent. Okay, so number one, role of a leader is whenever they're afraid, our job is to replace fear with confidence. The second job is whenever they're uncertain, to replace confusion with clarity. All right, so you can go, confidence is our role and clarity is our role, right? So I'll say that one again. Wherever they're uncertain, replace confusion with clarity. Everyone good so far? Fear, confidence, confusion, clarity. All right, good. You've got the coupling. And the third one is really at the heart of leadership, is mobilize us in pursuit of a better future, right? Help us move forward. Now, Jacinda Ardern is getting raps. I talk to anybody who's a Kiwi at the moment and they're going, yeah, maybe. But there's a sense that getting raps on the global stage based on the ability to respond in some of these areas, right? So great leadership is defined by, am I more or less afraid when I'm talking to you? Which is why the traffic light thing matters. Am I more or less confused when I talk to you? Which is why context is going to matter in a minute. And are we mobilized in pursuit of a better future? All right, so sequence, and context, just the two things that I'm going to bang on about. All right, so let's play a quick little game. And this game has you talking into the chat room for me a little bit. I'm going to say the word red. And what I want you to do is, I'm just going to say the word red. Just type into the chat group whatever you think when I say red. So I say red, you think. Let me see if I can get to the beautiful Sarah. And I'm going to make as a co-host. Thank you, Sarah. I think I've got everybody in, but I may not. Awesome. Awesome. All right, great. Now, do you get that I said red, but I gave you no framing for what red, in what context could actually be a question that you'd say to me? So I said red and you said, well, you gave me no context. I say, exactly. So do you see, if you look at the chat room yourself, you can see it's just random responses. You know, there's hot, there's anger, there's energy, there's danger, there's stop, there's, you know, all sorts of things that people are saying. Just out of interest, who said blue? Give me a thumbs up if you said blue. I'm just going to jump around the little grids. No one on grid 2. Who said blue? Pink Elvis, I reckon you went blue, didn't you? No. Okay. So if you were ever with someone and you said stop. If you're ever with someone and they said blue, you've just diagnosed someone with potential oppositional defiance disorder. And that's because, here's the way it works, just so you're tracking me at home. If I say red and you're not going to, like you're defiant, you're going to go, no, it's not red, it's green. But the problem is green's the exact opposite of red. And so you don't want to say that because you know I want you to say green because you're defiant. So you go stuff that and you pick the next primary color, which is blue. And this is what mentalists use to influence people in those magic shows where you go, oh my God, how did you read my mind? They didn't. They just gave you a series of what we call contextual gates so that by the end of the conversation, you couldn't think anything other than what they were saying. If you've watched the Will Smith movie, Focus, what you'll have seen is they try to get a gambler to pick a number, like 33. And what they do from the minute that gambler lands in New Orleans is they are just putting suggestions on billboards, on little buttons on people's shirts of the number 33. And what you do is increase the probability that when saying to someone, pick a random number between, I don't know, 0 and 100, they'll pick 33, right? Because you've entrained that number. So this is a concept used for evil called commanding the context. But here's the thing, it can also be used for good. So you know what I'm talking about. So you're in the matrix and I'm saying green or blue pill, right? I'm red, whatever the pills are, red pill, blue pill, red, green, anyway, 2 pills. And I'm saying to you, all right, so red through the context of transport. I say red, you think. Don't type them. Just keep this secretly up your sleeve, right? And just keep the magic in your head. I'm going to see if I can read your minds. I'll see if I can read your minds. Read through the context of transport. Okay, everyone's got that. Has everyone got something? Give me a thumbs up. All right, just one thing. All right, read through the context of cuisine, food. Everyone got something? Thumbs up. All right, read through the, Rachel, thumbs up, thank you. Read through the, thank you. Read through the context of cosmetics. All right, read through the context, thank you. Oh, Craig, you're faster than anybody, jeepers. All right, good. All right, let's see if I can approximate. Now, everyone go to gallery view now. So click it up to gallery view and you'll see the whole Brady Bunch. And this is where we're going to camera shame some people that haven't got the cameras on. I'm just saying. Now, in this environment, as you look, I want you to put a thumb up if I say what you were thinking. So everyone ready? You're looking at a gallery of a dozen people. Let's check it out. So through the context of transport, I said red. You might have said stop sign, brake light, traffic light. Who thinks traffic light's too obvious because of my opening sequence? Yeah. You might have gone fire engine, London bus, Ducati, Ferrari. Okay, I'm just going to stop there. Thumbs up if I said one of the things you thought. Now, you don't get all of the people all of the time, but as a leader, you need to not say red, you need to say red transport. Does everyone get that that's an example? And when you command the context of a leader, that's what you're doing. You're trying to get everybody on the same page. The way we deal with the fear is the traffic light sequencing. The way we deal with the confusion is commanding context, not content. Big idea, but not that hard to get. Let's say cuisine. So you said red meat. Everyone go back to speaker view now, because you know, that's just crazy. It's look at me, look at me, look at me. Okay, so if you're now here through the context of, what did I say? Cuisine. So it's red meat, it's red wine, it's tomato sauce, it's ketchup, it's chilies, it's capsicums, and it's Thai red curry. I'm done. Is that enough? Give me a thumbs up if I said what you said. Frida's going, nope, you did not get anything that I thought. Okay, good. Tina's going, no, Tina, you had something else? Okay, cool. That's good. Because you all do have free will. It's just by commanding the context, I'm more likely to get consensus. And when you're trying to lead a group of others, so let's say you were delivering a speech, at the beginning of your speech, could you please say, what I want to talk about today is, and don't give them an agenda slide with bullet points that puts them to sleep, or a graph that they can't read from a distance. Instead, just really establish what your conversational frame is going to be. Because I said at the beginning, I'm going to talk about two things. What were they? Sequence, yeah, and context. So everyone, if you wouldn't mind with your hands, if everyone could, just so I can see you following at home, can everyone do sequence for me just by going boom, boom, boom with your hands? So I'm going to say sequence, you go boom, boom, boom. And it can be bottom up, it can be top down, you can go left to right. It doesn't matter much. But one of the other things as a communicating leader is make sure your body language aligns with your context. Everyone with me? So if you say sequence, do a sequential thing with your hands. And it doesn't matter whether it's top down, bottom up, left to right, right to left, doesn't matter. But just make sure your body language is congruent with your message. When I say congruent, what am I doing? I almost see, like, obviously I'm going into a Bruce Lee gesture. Not enough leaders, when they communicate. And there was a gentleman who was a behavioral scientist called Albert Mehrabian, who talked about the importance of congruent body language with messaging. And this is not basic body messaging. It's just almost like that Will Smith movie Focus, right? Just do what you can to establish context powerfully. By the way, metaphors do that, symbols do that, and diagrammatic models do that as well, right? So your gesture will line up with your words. You will state explicitly what your context is as a leader, and this reduces confusion. And you'll also, so your body language will match your words. You'll state explicitly what it is. You might use a metaphor. Who gets that the traffic light is a metaphor? Thumbs up. All right, and all these things reduce confusion and increase clarity without actually needing to know the answer. Because the mistake that leaders make is that they believe the only way they can be clear is to be able to be very specific. But when you go concrete, what you're going into is content. When you go abstract, what you're going into is context. And there are a number of tools. Let's see if everybody was listening. So in the chat room, what were 2 of the 5 tools of context that I just gave you? I just gave you 5 tools for context. Let's see if you can remember them. Type them into the chat room. I'm making you work here. This is not all about me. Now, Sarah, am I almost at time? Was this ridiculously half an hour? Who ridiculously set this as half an hour? Was that me? Sarah's just going to type me a little message and go, yeah, you're meant to hang up now. Yeah, okay, saying yes it is. Who's having fun? Who wants to keep learning? All right, cool. Who's done because you had something else you need to do and you only put half an hour into your timetable? Give me that as a thumbs up. All right, Zachy, good to have you. See you, mate. Shane, good to have you. See you later. Don't forget to download the books. You'll be able to get recordings from this and all sorts of things that'll be helpful. All right, everybody, you're doing great. So what I'm going to do is, if anybody wants to ask a question or wants me to repeat something or just wants to express something into the group, as we shrink down to a smaller group, it becomes a little bit more manageable. My only rule is that you have your camera on if you're going to talk to me, and then obviously you'll be able to unmute yourself. Thank you. I understand some people got to go. Now let me look. Body language and alignment of hands to words. That was one, Maddie. Good job. Metaphor was another one, Rach. Good, good, good. Looks like I didn't get the other one done. I'm saying the key to commanding the context was drawing a diagram. So let me just quickly, if you're on speaker view, I'll just switch to my iPad again. So drawing a diagram is exactly like what I just did on this page, But it's also, you know, the classic diagrams are things like, you know, an ascension ladder, a line where things above and below the line, a Venn diagram, you know, a bunch of circles shoved together. It might be an XY graph that might be turned into a judgmental quadrant, like, you know, this is good, this is bad, this is half good. Everyone understand? These are the tools of leaders that you use to create clarity. You don't need content. You need to be able to sometimes draw models. This is a metaphoric model. So this is exactly the same. These two are exactly the same in structure in that they are XY graphs, but this one is judgmental and this one is accepting. This one might have like a north on it and a south and an east and a west. And it's like a compass of choice. And that was one of the other choices, of course, is metaphor. And you can overlay model and metaphor. Everyone cool with these? You could do upside down triangles. John McFarlane turned around ANZ Bank, and for 8 years in a row, it was the most high-performing bank here in Australia. And what Jock did with his leadership team was he said, no more PowerPoint. No more death by PowerPoint. What I want you to do is I want you to draw stuff. There's a book by a guy called Dan Roam, R-O-A-M, called The Napkin Expert. And it's basically about moving from digital communication to analog. And obviously in this world, we've got to sort of do analog with digital, which is like drawing on the iPad like I am. But he was saying that you get greater engagement in your communication if it's not premeditated, if it looks like it's sort of evolved through a conversation. And if I was in an advice-based business, I'd be looking to do that, like drawing like this. So we said metaphors were good. We said, but the other one is have a motif or a mantra, just say the word. So I told you that my context today, well, the advertising said it's about leading now, right? But at the beginning I said, I'm going to talk about two things, sequence and context. And every time I say the word context, I'm drawing a picture frame. Now I'm now making that explicit, but this is me just demonstrating some of the things. Now, if you are advising and leading others, particularly in times of change, looking for three things: fear down, confidence up, confusion down, certainty up, and mobilize us in pursuit of a better future. All right. And I think what we've been able to do in our half hour together is hopefully bring sort of two frameworks or a couple of frameworks, one around sequence and the other around context that you can use to bring things alive. I've got a pink book called Think, which you can download. And if you are big on this context thing and these diagrams and the metaphors and if that's like geeking you out, then I would download that book and I would go to a website called pinksheetprocess.com. And that's in the book. That link is in the book, pinksheetprocess.com. And it's a structured way of capturing your ideas and understanding the meta of your ideas, that's context, the meaning of your ideas, that's concept, and the matter that you're talking about, and that's content. If I showed you a picture of a vase and it had flowers in it, I'd say, what is the context? And you would go, it's the vase. I'd say, what is the content? It's the type of flower. And I'd go, what is the concept? It's the way they're arranged. And when you are a leader communicating, not only do you want to meet people where they're at and sequence their focus, but you also need to understand how to communicate from the concrete to the abstract. Because clarity is not about more information. It's about information that makes sense across those three levels of hierarchy, and that the pink book will do that. All right, you all good? Everyone okay? Is your health okay? Everyone's loved ones okay? How's your business? Is it all right? Who's got a little bit of this going on? Yeah, okay, I get it. Who's got a thumbs up? We're rocking, making more money than ever before. Okay, great. Lovely to see you. And if anybody knows anything around timing, leaders can't make stuff up, right? So I have some phrases that I think leaders should be using now. Right? And the phrase is, well, look, that was then and this is now. And I'm really interested in what we're going to do next. I think that's a really good phrase. That was then, this is now. I think the metaphor that goes with it is, I like to say, well, it's a bit like a Stargate, you know? We get to choose in this moment what we're going to carry through into the future. And right now we're in the unknown, but the world on the other side of this is different. So to get that metaphor, the Stargate, that was then, this is now, that is next. These are all ways that, mantras that I think leaders can use. I think the other thing that you really want to do, particularly when conversations go down into stuff and you end up, it's almost like politics, religion, and sex, right? It goes down into just too much stuff that's based on people's personal perspective and is not evidence-based. Leaders should use the phrase, well, what do we, it's a question and a phrase, what do we know for sure? And the answer to that question right now is not very bloody much. So what you're able to do is go, what do we know for sure? Let's focus on that. Let's focus on that. Let's focus on that. And what you stop is, because leadership is often about managing the despair of others. That's the phrase, right? Managing the despair of others. And that's not a typical motivational speaker phrase, but there's a huge part of that, isn't there? Like, because if they were all fine, they don't need you. You know what I mean? They're not afraid, they're not confused, and they know what to do. They don't need a leader, right? But if they are confused and they are afraid and they don't know what to do, that's important. And my number one test, whether you're leading, is whether there is gossip, sarcasm, and cynicism in your team. So when I walk into a team and you say you're a great leader, I go, I'll be the judge of that. And what I do is I listen to how much sarcasm in your team meetings, how much gossip is there in your culture, and how much cynicism is there, right? So I'm not big on positive thinking. What I'm big on is optimism, right? So a positive thinker gets hit by a truck and goes, oh, well, I needed some time off. All right, I think that's an idiot. What an optimist does is they go, well, that was the worst day we've ever had. Let's sleep on it, and tomorrow we'll have another crack at it. And I think leaders manage the despair of others not through positive, but by doing a culture of optimism. I love skeptics, right? A skeptic is listening to someone like me with their arms crossed and they're going, I do not love or hate this yet. Make your case, monkey boy, and we'll see, right? So I love that because I'm a scientist by training. My family are all engineers. So I love a skeptic because when you get a skeptic, they're like fully loyal and committed to the path of action, right? But I've got zero tolerance for a cynic. So a cynic is someone who's given up and hasn't yet shut up. And effectively for me, that's someone who has abdicated their role as leader. And if you are the cynical leader, then realize that one of the things that will affect you in good times and bad is that a fish rots from the head down. All right. So let's keep our optimism up. That doesn't mean we're not skeptical. We should definitely maintain agency and not outsource our sense making to other people. But at the same time, remember our job is to keep the fear down, the confusion down, and to overcome the inertia of doing nothing. And people are going to look for that from you right now. All right, I'm going to pause for applause. That means you all do this. Fantastic. You're going to wave your hands, wave your fingers. All right. Thanks everybody for taking the time. You're awesome. And remember, the world needs more leaders, and that means that the world needs you right now. So stand up, lead, and do a good job of it. Thanks everybody. Bless.